Buying a used Tesla can actually be a really difficult task. If you're trying to buy from a third-party private dealer, you have situations where they don't even understand the technology that comes with the car and list it as not having features that it very clearly has. But then you have the horror stories of buying directly from Tesla and then seeing people like Rich Rebuilds go months without ever actually seeing his Model X, or plenty of other stories that you find on subreddits all around the internet just detailing a terrible time that you can have purchasing from Tesla. I was able to pick up this used Model 3 with under 26 hours from time of purchase to the time that I actually drove it home, and I did it by following 3 key tips that I think will help you if you're looking to purchase a used Tesla. So let's get into those right now. So the first tip is the most obvious. It's know what you want beforehand. Do you want one of the more recent models like the 3 and the Y, or do you want the bigger SUV like the X, or do you want the giant boat with outdated technology like the S because you can get it for around $35,000. Determining which model you want and what features you want added onto it, whether it be autopilot, whether it be full self-driving, or then you have things like acceleration boost on the Model 3, or the various different colors and wheel options. Having that understood before you even start looking for the car helps you to actually get a leg up, and is one of the main reasons why I'd recommend going with Tesla directly versus a third-party dealer, is because Tesla is going to disclose all of the features that come with the car. And since things like full self-driving aren't widely understood by most car dealerships, the car may indeed have that option, but they don't list it, which could lead to a nice surprise if you didn't expect it, but could also make it so that they say it has some sort of autopilot, you're expecting full self-driving, and you weren't able to get exactly what you were looking for. So for my specific scenario, I actually needed to pick this up for a business venture that I'm working on outside of UFD Tech. I knew that I needed a Model 3 or Model Y that was long range and had full self-driving. Those were the key features. I didn't care about wheels, color, or anything like that, which made it a lot simpler for me because I could just look at whatever options were available. The Model Y was immediately ruled out for me because it started at $60,000 used, as opposed to this Model 3, which was significantly cheaper since it's been out for a little while longer. This is a 2019 Model 3, which allowed me to get it for significantly less than buying it new. Should have bought a Model Y. And thankfully, once you determine the car that you're looking for, Tesla's used car page actually has remarkable filters to help sort out the cars that you actually want instead of having to call around to dealerships. However, as I'm going to document in my journey with picking up this Model 3, that doesn't mean that you get saved from calling them at all, because it's a really confusing process even if you follow all of my tips. But thankfully, for all of the calls that I actually did have to make to Tesla to get this car in a timely fashion, I had today's video sponsor to help me out. My friends, today's video is brought to you by the Liberty Air 2 Pros. They're the ones that I used to make all of the calls that I needed for today's video. They're the successor to the Liberty Air 2s, which were recognized as the best AirPods and AirPods Pro alternative for under $100. And now, for less than $130, the Liberty Air 2 Pro provides listeners with a significant leap forward in sound quality and functionality. First and foremost, you have the hybrid active noise cancellation and multi-mode transparency, allowing you to filter noises in or out as you please. And as for the most important aspect of any earbud, sound quality, the Liberty Air 2 Pro uses Soundcore's very own 11mm pure note drivers, providing an unrivaled audio experience in its price bracket. On top of that, you've got 6 microphones for superior calls, fast charging capabilities via USB Type-C. You can charge for 15 minutes and listen for more than 3 hours. It also has wireless charging, and on top of that, you can customize the tips on the earbuds to make it so that it's the most comfortable fit for you. Personally, I sized mine down from the ones that came with it, and they just feel comfortable even with long hours of use. And the best feature, which I love on any earbud, is when you take them out, they auto pause. It's such a handy feature, especially when you're trying to take them out to listen. Even if you don't want to use transparency mode, it works really well. And they have multiple styles. You can get them in black, white, blue, or pink. And on top of that, not only can you customize the color, you can customize the listening experience with Hear ID, customizable EQs. You can tune the listening experience specifically to your ears and the way you want to hear things. So check out the Liberty Air 2 Pro pros at the links in the video description. Again, I couldn't have made all of the calls that I wanted to without these, so check them out. But that leads us to tip number 2. Make sure you have all of your financing taken care of ahead of time, especially if you're dealing with Tesla directly, because when you're buying a used vehicle from them, they actually charge you a $500 order fee that is non-refundable. So if you find out that you actually don't qualify for the financing terms that you were looking for, whether that be interest rate or the amount of money you have to put down, that $500 could be a sunk cost and you don't end up with the car. So having that taken care of ahead of time is key. Also, based on my history with Tesla, you don't make trade-ins with them either, because they actually don't want to deal with used cars, because they only really resell the Teslas that they get in, and then they put the other cars out on wholesale in different auctions, and they don't make as much money from them. So Tesla actually doesn't really want your trade-in, even though they have the option for you to trade them in. I honestly would suggest, if you're looking for an easy, no hassle way to get money for your current car and then pick up a Tesla, I'd recommend something like Carvana. I've worked with them for the previous vehicle that we had for my employees when they were here in the States, and within a week they came, they picked up the car, they cut me a check, and the money was in my account very quickly. And so taking care of that before I even get to Tesla meant that I had several thousand more dollars from that trade-in versus getting that trade-in quote from Tesla directly. So having the financing taken care of ahead of time means that you're not going to lose that $500 order fee, and then also you don't have to necessarily deal with the lowballing that Tesla might do on the trade-ins. So tip number 1, you know what car you're actually looking to get, which makes it so that you can sort through the filters and have it identified. Tip number 2, make sure you have the financing ahead of time so that you don't deal with any surprises on Tesla side. But then the third tip, which I would argue is the most important, is that you are willing to go get the vehicle in person and that you don't rely on Tesla transporting it to you. This is for a couple of reasons. Number 1, it's going to save you a minimum of $500. Tesla's minimum transport fee is $500, which they wanted to quote me for transporting the car from Tampa, Florida to Orlando, Florida, even though they're both a 2-hour drive for me. So I just told them, keep it at Tampa, I will come pick it up. But it can sometimes result in a $2,000 transport fee, like if I wanted to bring this used vehicle all the way from California to Florida. Not only will that complicate logistics, because Tesla ends up losing track of the vehicle sometimes, and is where a lot of the horror stories comes in, but $2,000 is a lot of money to save, because that's enough for a flight out there and for all the supercharging that you're going to need to get home. Obviously, it will cost you a lot in time, but if you can find one that's within your state or within a couple hundred miles, I would say it's definitely absolutely worth doing that, because it's going to save money and the complicated logistics that come with shipping it across the country, which Tesla hasn't mastered yet. But as I mentioned, even though I followed all of those tips, I still had to spend hours on the phone with Tesla in order to get my car within a day, because of how confusing their entire system is. So this car was located in Tampa, Florida. So before I even ordered the car, I called them and said, hey, what's the turnaround time on your used vehicles? They told me that they could even do it same day. If I show up with cash, I can drive away with the vehicle. Wasn't confident in that based on what I read, so I decided to place the order online, and then I called them after I had my order to find out, okay, when can I actually get the car? During that call, I was on hold for 15 to 20 minutes while they tried to identify whether or not they even had the used vehicle in their dealership. Finally, they got back to me. They told me they'd have to appoint me a service advisor and I would hear from them within a few hours. That never happened. I had to follow up with them again, at which point they told me they escalated it to a manager and I would be hearing from them at some point. I figured that I would be hearing from Tampa directly, because I'm purchasing from the Tampa dealership. But apparently the used dealership cannot communicate with the new dealership. They were unwilling to transfer my call, and they told me that there was nothing they can do besides have somebody call me, which they did a few hours later from California. I got a call from the used car department out in the actual headquarters of Tesla rather than anything local. And when I asked him about it, why can't this just be as simple as me being transferred into the used car side, he said that it can, and that they have the potential for it to be, but for some reason this time it didn't work. But the kicker here is that call that I received from California wasn't even to schedule my delivery. It was to confirm whether or not the delivery could be scheduled at all, to make sure I had the financing in place, to make sure I had my insurance lined up, and to make sure that they actually had the car. So I had to get yet another call from yet another person in California to actually confirm the delivery date, which when he called me, he told me it was actually gonna be 2 days from when I ordered rather rather than the next day. And he told me that's because they don't do deliveries within 24 hours. I told him, hey, I purchased at 2 p.m. I'm looking to pick up at 4 p.m. That's a 26-hour window. He didn't like my cheekiness there, so he kind of grumbled a little bit, but he yielded and he said, fine, your car will be ready for delivery. And thankfully, I got a notification the next day, early in the morning, got a call from Tampa, Florida, where they just wanted to make sure that I was still coming to pick up the car. I asked them, hey, can you make sure the car is charged up to 80% because I have to drive 125 miles back home to Gainesville, and then I had to drive my dad back to Tampa since he was helping me organize all of this stuff, so I needed the full charge. They said that they could, and so it came time for me to make the 2-hour trip down to Tampa. But before I even began that, the car actually ended up popping up in the Tesla app, so I knew that it was sitting there and it was ready, waiting for me to go. And so all I had to do was get down there, inspect the car, make sure that it was in the conditions that Tesla says a used car should be, whether it's the paint chips or the potential windshield chips that I have right here, which this one's like 1/8 of an inch, and they say any windshield cracks up to 1 inch are technically covered, which is totally fine with me. I was expecting that. So doing a once over of the car, making sure that it's completely okay. You transfer the rest of the money to them via Plaid, which basically connects your bank account to Tesla's account, and then you accept delivery on their app. The actual delivery portion was the smoothest part, except for the fact that they didn't have screws to put on my license plate. So we had to wait 35 minutes for the delivery guy to go find screws to put the license plate on so that I could drive home with my tag on the actual car. The registration was in the glove box, but there was actually no tag on the vehicle, and I had to wait for that to happen. If he had had screws, I would have been in and out in 5 minutes, but as it was, I had to wait 35 minutes, which is honestly the least amount of time that I've spent at a dealership picking up any vehicle. So yes, buying a used Tesla did take some legwork in order to get it done quickly. And I've seen plenty of videos of YouTubers flying out to other states to go pick up a vehicle because it's in stock in that specific area. That is honestly the best case scenario for picking up either an existing inventory Tesla or picking up a used Tesla. Making sure that you know what you want, that you have the money ready to go before you even place the order, and then you're willing to go fetch the car. It still takes a little bit of groundwork and tons of calls and a little bit of headache in order to get it done, but it can be done. There's still a ton that I would like to see Tesla improve on personally, especially with regards to not being able to communicate with the very dealership that I'm going to be picking up from until I talk to somebody in California. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact that there are no pictures of the vehicle, it's all the stock photos, and you have to trust that it's going to be in an okay condition, which I've heard from other stories isn't always the case. So it is a bit of a gamble. Tesla's not great on the customer service, so you kind of have to help them along in case you want to pick up the used vehicles. So now I have my used red 2019 Tesla Model 3 named Scarlet, which I'm going to be using for a few business ventures outside of YouTube, but I'm actually really happy with this. The overall experience was much easier than dealing with a traditional car dealership where they strong arm you, where you're sitting there uncomfortable waiting for them to actually get back to you with the numbers, and then you have to negotiate. Tesla's no haggle model. Tesla's you buy online and then it's done model. I actually really appreciate. And so I thought this was overall a smooth experience, but I wanted to give these details on how you could potentially make it easier for yourself in case you're looking at picking up either a new or used Tesla at any time in the near future. I do have some more videos planned with this Model 3 coming up, but you can check out this video right here, which is an early UFD Tech video where I tried to make the fastest gaming computer that I could running off of the cigarette lighter in a car, or you can check out this video down here, which is just a brief update of what's going on with me and my family and the stuff that we're kind of been going through lately. With that being said, I'm Brett with UFD Tech, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, friends. Oh, it's so fast.